Welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at tonight's 9-game slate on DraftKings, and you got ourselves a Clayton Kershaw night, and he is sitting at 14K going up against the Reds. And I'll ask you, are you going to pay that price tonight?
Yeah, in some lineups I am. I mean, you're always tempted to pay up for him, but really when you're getting into 14K, you're really gonna have to hit a strong value. I mean, he can't at 14K, you can't really get less than 33 to 35 fantasy points, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I'm certainly looking for another double-digit strikeout performance for sure. Win 8+ innings of one earned to zero earned ball. I mean, he's got
Mhm.
to. I mean, he has been putting that up, so it's like you know what you're getting from him in the Cincinnati lineup. Obviously, on the road here in LA is not that strong.
Mhm.
So, but that means we're going to have to kind of dig down for value, and I think Cueto's kind of a nice pivot off, so he can open up some space. But looking at catcher, I mean, no one's really priced too highly here, and there are some good options. Um, I know you're on kind of that Royals team tonight, and Salvador Perez is kind of a nice option behind the dish.
Definitely, yeah. I think this Royals team is pretty intriguing tonight, and he's one of the cheaper guys, especially if you're going to pay up for pitcher. And Kershaw isn't really the only guy to pay up for tonight. I think there are a few nice options in good spots tonight up there. So I think the Royals are a nice cheap way to get a good stack in as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Nolasco, 354 Woba allowed to righties, 1.11 home runs per nine. Perez, a nice option there behind the dish. I think if you want to get a little bit different, I think Posey's ownership is going to be pretty low against Pomeranz. If you want to roll with a nice track record like Posey, who has it against lefties, we saw it against Leicester, the other night on that 5-game slate and him go deep. And I mean, he has that potential, and 3,500 is not a bad price tag to take that risk on.
Definitely, yeah. I think we're looking at Posey pretty much all the time now. I don't think it matters at this point who he's going up against after the other day. But yeah, kind of looking a little lower. Cameron Rupp hasn't been too intriguing to me this year. He did hit a homer the other day, and I think he does have a decent matchup today. So as sort of a punt option at catcher, I think he's sort of intriguing to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. 2,600. I mean, that frees up some salary, and those Phillies catchers have been hitting kind of that top six part of the order, which is nice. So you
Hmm.
definitely like that, and it's not a bad matchup at all against Pelfrey. So yeah, I think Rep's a solid play. Ruiz, if he's starting, is only just $100 more, so you can check the lineups there.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not a ton of this slate to really look at for catcher.
Uh-uh.
First base here, and you get Rizzo going up against Wainwright, who coming off a strong start, but overall hasn't looked great this year. 4,600 for Rizzo has been he's been far the best, consistent option on this slate of first baseman.
Who, Rizzo?
Yeah, in
Yeah, I
comparison to everyone
mean,
else.
in terms of what you're looking for compared to these guys, I mean, Prince Fielder, and I will say Prince is turning it around. I'm not really looking at him tonight, but he does have a 5-game hit streak going, so just chugging along till he's just getting over that 200 batting average. But yeah, no, Rizzo clear top option for me. I think he's potentially in playing cash. I mean, Wainwright's should be a solid pitcher, but he hasn't really shown it much thus far this year. So definitely looking at maybe a Cub stack or something, and he's probably going to be one of the main guys to surround that stack with. But in terms of tonight roster construction, you can pay up for him, but might be a little tough to fit him in.
Yeah, and I like Eric Hosmer 4,400, but I mean obviously he's just 200 less. But
Hmm.
you gotta like the matchup there with Nolasco, 374 Woba allowed to lefties. So I mean this Royals team, I mean, is going to be one to kind of focus around,
Yeah.
and I think Hosmer's kind of in a good spot as well. I mean, those two are kind of my two top guys because you get guys like Prince Fielder, obviously Adrian Gonzalez, a lefty-lefty matchup. There's a lot of things that aren't really too appealing down low.
Right. And yeah, Pujols is another one where obviously you don't want to pay 4,500 for what he's produced this year, but I think the Angels have a shot against Derek Holland tonight because it's Derek Holland. But back to Hosmer for a second. The Royals don't strike out a lot, and Nolasco doesn't strike out a lot of people a lot. So there's going to be a lot of balls in play today, and that's kind of my theory with the Royals. It always is kind of that way anyway, but even more so today. So I think they have some good opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think one guy, if you're looking cheap, who's a great option is Steve Pearce, 3,400. Gets a lefty on the hill. Pearce has notably hit well against lefties throughout his career. And I mean, you look at Chen, 335 WOBA, 1.41 home runs per nine. He's my cheap first baseman if I'm going down that low.
Right. Yeah, I like that call. What do we think about a Matt Adams tonight?
These Cardinals prices really intrigue me. I mean, you look at Lackey, I mean, he's pitched well. I mean, fairly average against lefties over the last few seasons, 319 WOBA allowed. So I kind of don't mind the Cardinals at their price tags, kind of really on both sides tonight.
Like Lackey's been pitching well, but not well enough to make these guys' prices reduced this much. So I think there are a lot of one-offs in that lineup that I'd be willing to throw in there, especially if you're trying to build around higher priced pitchers or say a Rizzo or something like that. I think you can make that happen if you throw some Cardinals in there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Lackey, I mean, I completely agree. He's pitched well, but it's like, okay, these guys are priced down like it's, Kershaw on the hill. So I think they are, great one-offs in play. I think they are an interesting GPP stack because they are so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely.
Second base here, and finally, you've been griping about this for days. Daniel Murphy finally priced up it appropriately at 4,900.
Feels
taking
good.
That Bartolo Colon.
Yeah, it feels good. Finally at a reasonable price where I can think about truly not playing him, even if it's a lefty. I'm going to think about Daniel Murphy at 3,600. So he's in a more reasonable price now. Still a solid play. I mean, Bartolo's the wheels are starting to fall off here as we're heading through the season, but he's intriguing at 49, but again, it's going to be tough to fit him in.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think this is a spot where you can kind of pay down with. And I mean, the Angels have some value bets against Derek Holland. Pettit and Giovatola is kind of intriguing plays for cheap. Both of kind of the similar price tag, 39, 3,700. With the lefty on the mound, I mean, the Angels haven't been tremendous this year, but they have turned it around of late. I think this is starting to kind of heat things up there. And against Holland, that should continue, especially in Texas.
Definitely like that call. We target Derek Holland now that I have. He opened up the Toronto stack, unlike most pitchers have been able to this year. So there's always sort of that upside with him. I think in that 3K range, you're looking at Cesar Hernandez, I believe you mentioned.
Yeah, I like him. 3K, I mean, going up against Pelfrey is intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
And Pierce still 3,400 if you want to be different. Mm-hmm. I don't even mind Howie Kendrick at 34. So there are some guys to kind of pivot down here that I feel comfortable using.
Yeah, I think there's value all over the board at second tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good spot to kind of pay down. And I think kind of at that price tag for Daniel Murphy, as good as the matchup is, it's kind of a GPP only for me.
Yeah, definitely standalone.
So, third base here, and Chris Bryant's been absolutely on fire, but he carries a huge price tag. 5,200, I mean, that's kind of a steep one. Unlike Rizzo, I think he's just more of a GPP only. Just because, one, I don't believe I'll be able to fit him into my lineups if I'm paying up a pitching like that. I would really have to punt elsewhere.
Yeah. I think you have to at least pay up for one pitcher tonight to be realistic with yourself. Whether it's Cueto or not necessarily Kershaw, but one of the top three, I think you have to do. So once you start looking at Chris Bryant and his big salary, compared to some of maybe the better values at the position, it kind of becomes less realistic unless you're doing a Cub stack like I mentioned before. But yeah, I'm kind of looking to pay down here tonight.
Yeah, me too. And I like Longoria at 46. We talked about Chen struggle with right-handed bats. Longoria hitting the ball well. Same with this whole Rays team. And I mean, 4,600. I think wish he was a little bit cheaper, but I don't hate him tonight. I think he's kind of the guy I would rather pay up for if I was paying up in that range.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking in that Beltray to Prado to Valencia range. I think that's where I'm probably making my moves at this position. I think they're all reasonably priced and have solid upside. So I'm not too worried about getting blown off the board by Chris Bryant if I'm playing those three. I think they all have pretty solid upside.
Yeah, I agree, and I like Franco 3,900. Going up against Pelfrey 343 Mobile out to right-handers.
Mm-hmm.
Good call there. And Prado facing the lefty Matt Moore. And Moore's been so up and down. And when he's bad, I mean, he is bad. So I think there are some solid spots here. And Matt Moore, 347 Mobile out to right-handed bat since 2014. It puts a lot of these Mariners right-handers in play for sure.
Right. And a guy that I pulled out all my lineups yesterday. I had him in. He didn't play, so I pulled him out before lock. The game ends up going like 16 innings or something crazy. Pinch hits and hits a homer. Justin Turner, my man, that was rough. But yeah, he's only 3K. But I mean, still, he struggled this year and not necessarily a great option, but always in play at his price, it seems.
Yeah, price considered. I don't have any problem with punting to a guy like Turner just because he's hitting the top of the lineup. And if you're playing Kershaw, you're going to need those types of plays. And
right.
I don't mind him. And I mean, 2 homers in the last 3 games. Maybe something's clicking for him.
Yeah,
hopefully. But,
definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of great calls. I like the Prado, Beltray, Franco range in Valencia as well. So, shortstop here, and I'm not really looking to pay up. I like Alcides Escobar, 3,600 leading off for the Royals. 3,600 is not a bad price tag for him. And Heckavaria, he's not quite the 2,900, but he gets a lefty, so you got to like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's always in play. You kind of just throw him in there and hope for the best, hope he gets a few hits, which he has been all right lately. So I'm okay with that play. Taylor Motter, nice punt. And Aledmus Diaz quickly becoming one of my favorite players because he bats like 360 and he's below 3,500 every day. So I think he's always pretty much in play at his price.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think this race team is definitely going to be interesting once they come out with the lineup because, one, they're going to throw a bunch of right-handers in there against Chen. You're going to see Motter. You could see a guy like Tim Beckham come in and play, hits lefty as well. So I think the Rays are going to be kind of that value move tonight.
Right.
So, but overall, shortstop's pretty weak. I think really Escobar, Diaz, those are the only guys I'm really looking at. Beckham, Motter.
Right.
That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Outfield tonight, and I'm not quite sure if I'm paying up here. Marcell Ozuna, very expensive on DraftKings at 5K, but the way he's been hitting the ball, the way he hits lefties, it makes you want to, but I think price considered, I'm not sure I quite go up that high.
Yeah, again, a lot of these high-priced options just aren't realistic unless you're building a lineup with them as the base. So Ozuna, again, I don't think I can pay that price for him, but I do understand the reasoning behind it. So if you're making a tournament lineup, sure, throw him in there, but only it's going to be tough to just throw a 5K guy in there,
Yeah. And Lorenzo Cain, I like him a lot. He's been heating up. 4,500 against Alaska, kind of one of my favorite top tier outfielders again.
Definitely. Yeah, no, he really popped up for me because obviously if you like the Royals, you're gonna like Cain tonight. So he's someone that I'm gonna get in as many lineups as I can, and he's a little bit cheaper than some of the other top guys. So
yeah. I like Odubel Herrera, 4K. Great option, hitting really well this season. And you look at Pelfrey, 371 Woba allowed to lefties. 4K is a great price tag for a guy who just consistently gets on base. Also can steal a bag or two. So I like him a lot.
Yeah. And I think when we look at the Cardinals again, I think Piscotty's in play, solid player. Holiday, 3,100. If he's in, I don't know if he's in the lineup. He might not be, but Piscotty's definitely in the lineup, and he's pretty reasonably priced.
Mhm. Ben Revere, I mean, he was one of our top cafe value plays from yesterday's slate. Had a big day. 3,600 again, going up against a Cologne. Um, I mean, 17-6, 27 over his last 3 games there. It's not too bad. I mean, coming around 7 hits in that span.
A big boy day at 1% owned. So that was a big win for the old cafe value.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get that same ownership tonight. I think he'll kind of pop up. And that tier right there, because I like Brandon Geyer as well. Hits lefty's going to be up in the top of that order against Chen. I think that's kind of a good area to kind of sit in.
Definitely. Yeah, Trace Thompson I think is intriguing as well. But yeah, kind of looking in that range.
Yep, love Trace Thompson, 3,300. Has that starting role. Going to see a lefty tonight, which is always intriguing for Thompson. And you feel pretty good about that. And then we noticed, I mean, Matt Holliday, Brandon Moss, this Randall Grichuk is all priced relatively low, as if Lackey's a dominant 20-game winner, Cy Young type. Like, I mean, Lackey is good. He's been great, but let's take a look at this Cardinals team a little bit differently. I mean, they're a top 3 team against right-handed pitching at home. I think you can look at them as kind of a cheap stack to take a look at.
Absolutely.
So if you need any, I mean, I'm glad it's tonight's slate. I kind of like the way it's shaping out. There's a lot of punts and kind of guys that I don't feel bad about using, like Kike Hernandez with the lefty there, 3K. I mean, you can really open some things up.
Definitely.
So, anyone else you like here?
Not really. I think that whole range, you kind of fill it up. Obviously, you like the top guys. I don't know Trout's status. I believe he left the game yesterday, so we're gonna have to wait and see on that. But obviously, he's a tremendous play. He kind of takes some of the sting out of that Angel stack if that doesn't happen. So you can obviously swerve off of that if he's out of the lineup. But Harper, Bryant, Cruz, Ozuna, I think all those guys are in play tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Nelson Cruz gets the lefty. Tougher matchup with Hill, but price considered, I think he's a decent GPP option even up top.
Right.
So that's going to wrap things up here with the DK Daily Trot. Be sure to check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all great tools and content.